Welcome to the first of 10 basic lessons on how to run a board meeting. I'm Myron Steeves. I'm an attorney that practices in the nonprofit sector with the California Center for Nonprofit Law. I've been working in this field for about 20 years, and a lot of my work has involved attending board meetings, seeing what works and seeing what doesn't. From this, we've gathered a lot of materials together on how to run a board meeting effectively. There are a lot of books out there on how to manage an organization. We're doing something a little bit differently here. This is not just management techniques, but rather how to address issues that keep you out of legal trouble and also specific means by which you can run a board meeting in order to be effective in carrying out the entire purpose of a board existing. So these videos are about what a board is and what a board does. We do have an interesting approach in that we're going to talk about some techniques that we encourage you to use at your board meeting. These aren't necessarily legally mandated, but they're very good ideas. So our recommendation is take these thoughts that we offer and try them out for a few board meetings. And to the extent that they meet your needs, continue using them. To the extent that you find these just don't quite match what our needs are in our organization, they can be changed. These aren't legal violations, they're just good ideas. An example of this is you'll find us talking later on about the 40-40-20 rule. This is a means by which we address how to plan for a board meeting and how to divide the time at a board meeting. But that's in a later video, and take a look at that if you've got curiosity about what that is all about. Meanwhile, I want to start off by talking about the three purposes for which boards exist. They're to overview strategy, to overview safety, and to audit. And our later videos go into these in much greater detail. I want to just give a very brief summary of those before we get into it. On the strategy part, the primary areas where an organization shows strategy at its board meetings is to have a very strong concept of what you'd like the organization to look like 10 years from now. That is, how does it fulfill its purpose? What do you want it to accomplish the next 10 years? And given that vision, what will it cost? And among the costs, a major part of that is going to be staffing. It is very good for a board to plan what do we want to accomplish in 10 years. And from that, step two is what do we want to accomplish in 3 years? Bearing in mind that the 3-year plan isn't just 1/3 of the 10-year plan. Usually it takes a lot of work to get things moving and they speed up later on. So it's very possible in the first 3 years, you'll just be setting the groundwork for a major operation that will take place later on. And then on the 1-year level, most of that planning is something that is done at the same time as planning the budget for the next year. But on strategy generally, you can think of it as breaking down in the 10-year strategy, the 3-year strategy, and next year's budget. The safety element, the second point that we're talking about, covers safety in a really broad sense. There's financial safety. There's safety for the physical structures owned by the organization, buildings if it has a building, automobiles if it's involved in transportation, personnel safety, including appropriate training, physical safety for employees, emotional safety for those that work to care for those that might be vulnerable, and safety in insurance, whether the insurance is adequate to cover the needs of the organization. This is an area that the individual board members don't necessarily need to have a high degree of knowledge about, but they need to learn what the needs are for their organization and how to carry that out. So the first area of concern is strategy, second area is safety, and third is audit. This is a difficult aspect of board operations, and I like to refer to one of my favorite advisors on strategy, President Ronald Reagan, who used the expression trust but verify, that the role of a board in its audit of the staff is one of both trusting. After all, you wouldn't put people there if you didn't believe that they could carry out the work, but you also have to verify that they're accomplishing that goal. And there's a reason for this. It is a remarkable thing that in the world of carrying out activities through organizations, usually we call those businesses, although we're not comfortable using that term to describe a charity's work, but the basic idea is that you pay taxes on revenue that you generate. There's a huge exception for the charitable sector that does not need to pay taxes because it's doing good and benevolent work for society, but the price to be paid for it is that the government regulators want to make sure that it's actually carrying out that charitable purpose. And that means not trusting one person, one leader, no matter how dynamic and honest and truthful that person may be. But in order to assure that the work is being carried out by the standards that are needed, boards exist. So the directors are auditing the performance of the key players within the organization. So for the board to carry out its operations effectively, it needs to have reports that indicate how well the leadership of an organization are meeting the benchmarks that are agreed to with the board. So we'll go into more detail on this later on, but bear in mind as we start that the key issues we'll be discussing in these first 10 videos are the board and its role in strategy, its role in safety, and its role in audit. So we're keeping these initial videos brief. I hope that when you get through all of these, you'll have a good sense of how to make your board far more effective. And we're always available at this enterprise to carry out any kind of assistance that we can give as advisors, and we welcome engaging with you along the way. So I trust that you have a good time watching these other videos.